You're not weak because life got hard. You're weak because you were never taught how to get harder than life. And no one is going to teach you. Not your school, not your environment, not the algorithm feeding you 30-second clips of someone else's highlight reel. That responsibility belongs to one person, the one watching this right now. If something tightened in your chest when you heard that, stay with it, because that's not discomfort. That's recognition. And recognition is where everything begins. Look around. People are more informed, more inspired, more connected than any generation in history. And yet, anxiety is at historic highs. Attention spans are fracturing. Depression, chronic stress, and what psychologists now call purposelessness, the quiet absence of direction, are climbing across every demographic. You can know every Stoic quote ever written and still flinch when life tests you. You can understand discipline in theory and still choose comfort every single morning in practice. The gap between knowing and being, that's where most people live their entire lives without ever crossing it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Modern life has been engineered to remove resistance. Food in minutes, entertainment instantly, every friction point smoothed away. And when difficulty does appear, a hard conversation, a slow process, a goal requiring sustained effort without immediate reward, the nervous system treats it as a threat to escape, not a challenge to grow into. That single neurological recalibration is the root of most modern weakness. The Stoics had a word for what this produces: akrasia, acting against your own better judgment. Choosing the lesser thing because it's closer, faster, softer. Akrasia isn't a character flaw. It's a trained response. And trained responses can be retrained. What follows are 7 silent rules, not inspiration, but operational principles that the mentally strong live by. Drawn from Stoic philosophy, confirmed by modern behavioral science, not one requires talent. Every single one requires a choice. Rule 1. Choose difficulty before it chooses you. Seneca wrote about deliberately choosing harder conditions. Cold, simpler food. Physical strain, not as self-punishment, but as what he called a rehearsal. A rehearsal is practice for the real performance. He was practicing poverty so poverty couldn't shock him. Practicing discomfort so discomfort couldn't break him. When you choose difficulty voluntarily, it stops having power over you. You've already been in that territory. Neuroscience confirms this. Stress inoculation training, used extensively in military preparation, shows that controlled, graduated exposure to manageable difficulty genuinely recalibrates your threat response system. The amygdala stops firing at full volume over minor friction because minor friction is no longer novel. The practice: choose one hard thing every day. Nothing dramatic. The cold shower when your body says warm. The difficult conversation when avoidance says wait. The deep work when distraction says scroll. Each private, unglamorous choice is a repetition. And repetitions, stacked daily over years, build something no amount of inspiration ever produces. A self that doesn't break when tested. Because it's already been tested by you on purpose. Rule 2. Master the 90-second gap. Epictetus, born a slave with no control over his circumstances, built an entire philosophy around one insight. The only thing that can never be taken from you is your response. Every uncontrolled reaction is a disclosure, a data point that tells the world exactly where you can be moved. And data like that doesn't stay unused. Modern neuroscience maps this precisely. What Epictetus called the gap between stimulus and response, researchers call prefrontal cortex override, your executive function stepping in to modulate the amygdala's automatic alarm. And that capacity is trainable. Rule 3. Stop paying taxes to the uncontrollable. Write this down somewhere. You'll see it. Everything in your life falls into exactly 2 categories. What you control, your thoughts, choices, effort, values, attention, response. And what you don't, the economy, other people's moods, whether you're liked, whether life distributes outcomes fairly. This is the Stoic dichotomy of control. And it's not just philosophy, it's arithmetic. Psychologist Martin Seligman's research on learned helplessness found something sobering. When people consistently direct attention toward factors they cannot control, they develop measurable decreases in motivation, creativity, resilience, and problem-solving capacity. They become genuinely less capable over time. When you feel the pull toward anxiety or rumination, ask one thing. Is this within my control? If yes, act right now with full energy. If no, release. Not because it doesn't matter, because spending yourself on it doesn't change it. Stop paying taxes to the uncontrollable. You cannot afford it. Rule 4. Build the private self. Who are you when nobody is watching? Marcus Aurelius wrote the Meditations as a private journal with no intended audience. Not for publication, not for legacy, for himself alone, a daily practice of asking who he was when the emperor costume came off. He was the most powerful man in the known world. He deliberately refused to let his identity be defined by his title, because anything dependent on an audience can be disrupted by that audience's reaction. The self built in private, through consistent choices when no reward is coming and no one is watching, doesn't require external maintenance. It's structural. It's yours in a way that no public identity ever can be. The identity carries the behavior. Most transformation fails not for lack of information. It fails because the person never made the identity shift. They kept seeing themselves as someone trying to be disciplined rather than someone who simply was. The question is not what habits you want to build. It's who you are choosing to be in private, right now, today, when it costs you something and produces nothing visible. Answer that with your actions, consistently. Rule 5. Fall in love with the process. We've been conditioned to measure everything by its outcome. And that creates a very specific fragility, because outcomes are never fully within your control. If your sense of value depends on the result, every setback becomes a verdict, not just about the project, about you. The people who change things are not the people who win every time. They are the people who continue when they don't. And you cannot continue through loss if you've attached your identity to winning. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The obstacle isn't a disruption to your progress. It is the material your progress is made of. You do the work because of what it makes you, and what it makes you outlasts any single result by a factor that cannot be measured. Rule 6. Let death clarify everything. The Stoics practiced memento mori. Remember that you will die. Before you dismiss this, understand what they were actually doing. They were not cultivating despair. They were performing a specific cognitive act, bringing mortality into conscious awareness so the present moment could carry its actual weight. Because when death remains unexamined, it doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes the unnamed dread beneath procrastination, beneath risk aversion, beneath the endless postponement of what actually matters. Seneca diagnosed this in ancient Rome with a directness that cuts across 2,000 years. People with every resource available to them, spending their days on everything except the things that would matter when the days ran out. Sound familiar? Terror management research found that when people genuinely confront their finitude without denial, they shift toward meaning, toward depth, toward what actually matters rather than what merely distracts. The work you keep delaying suddenly feels like the emergency it is. This is not anxiety. Anxiety is diffuse, unexamined dread. Memento mori is the opposite, looking directly at the most certain thing in your future and letting that clarity clean out everything that doesn't belong in the time you have. You are on borrowed time. Act accordingly. Rule 7. Make character the one thing they can't take. Your money, reputation, health, relationships, status, plans, any of these, in the right circumstances, through no fault of your own, can be stripped away. Any of them. There is only one thing that cannot be taken without your permission: the quality of the person you choose to be, right now, inside whatever circumstances surround you. The Stoics called this virtue, and across every Stoic text, one claim emerges consistently. Virtue is the only unconditional good. Not wealth, not health, not pleasure. Only who you choose to be remains yours regardless of what the external world does. Lose the deal. Who do you choose to be in the loss? Face the betrayal. Who do you choose to be in the aftermath? Encounter the obstacle. Who do you choose to be inside the friction? Research on post-traumatic growth found that the people who demonstrated the greatest long-term psychological strength after severe adversity were not those with the most resources. They were the ones who maintained a stable internal sense of identity and values during the crisis, not after, during. Live for approval, and you are perpetually dependent on circumstances cooperating. Live for virtue, and you carry your foundation with you wherever you go. 7 rules. None require talent. None require waiting until you feel ready, because that feeling never comes. Most people watching this will feel something real right now, and then life will continue. The next notification, the next distraction, and the feeling will fade before it becomes action. Don't let that be your story. The reps are always running. The only question is which pattern they're reinforcing. Choose discomfort over collapse. Response over reaction. Private consistency over public performance. The work over the outcome. Urgency over comfortable postponement. Character over circumstance. Not once, not when you feel like it. Daily, quietly, without applause. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. Save this. Not for the days you feel strong. Save it for when the easier version of yourself is standing right there, offering you a way out. Now go prove it, in private, where it actually counts.